Good morning, everybody. If you had been in the United States before 1850, you would have come across petroleum, rock oil, but as medicine or something else. And the idea that you could dig for it was pretty radical, but that's what happened. On this date, August 27, in 1859, under the supervision of Edwin Drake, the first oil well was dug in Titusville, Pennsylvania. You know what asphalt is. You may have heard of bitumen. They're the same thing. Exists naturally, and ancient peoples knew about this stuff, which comes naturally from the earth. The Greeks, for instance, had a weapon called Greek fire, which was probably some kind of petroleum-based weapon that they would use in combat to great effect. So this map is part of our story. On the right circle is where Seneca oil seeped out of the ground. The center circle is where our event happened in western Pennsylvania, and Cleveland on the far left is where a very young John D. Rockefeller worked. So a French missionary had noted petroleum coming out of the ground at what's known as the Seneca Oil Spring in New York State back in the 1600s. And I've not been there, but if you go there today, you can see this just oozing of oil right out of the ground. So that would be a cool thing to do if you're in that part of New York State. And people use this primarily for medicine. They would bottle it straight up or maybe mix it with other things and sell it as medicine. And nobody really knew what else to do with it. And one thing people were looking for was a replacement for whale oil for illumination, and some people wondered if maybe petroleum could play that role, but nobody really knew for sure. So people would drill for salt, and what that meant is they'd drill down, they'd get briny water, and then they'd let that evaporate, and then they'd get salt. And they noticed from time to time when they drilled for salt, they also found petroleum, and there's a reason for that, which I won't go into. But in 1854, Samuel Keir, north of Pittsburgh, was drilling for salt and had found petroleum, and he refined it and made a product. And this got George Bissell's attention. So George Bissell was very interested in what was known as a petroleum seep, where it would just come out of the ground. So in 1854, the same year as that guy had found petroleum, he started the Pennsylvania Rock Oil Company. Rock oil is what petroleum means, and he hired Benjamin Silliman from Yale, whose dad had been a chemist. He was also a chemist, to look at this rock oil to see if it had some possibilities, particularly for illumination. And Silliman said it did, so Drake was hired. So Edwin Drake's on the right in this photo. He went to Titusville, Pennsylvania, where there had been lots of oil seeps. They picked him because he had a railroad pass and he could ride for free. And Drake hired this guy who had a lot of experience drilling for salt, hoping they might find some oil. And they did on this date, August 27, 1859. And soon oil wells were all over that part of Pennsylvania. If you look at the map, there's a town called Oil City. You might know Pennzoil as a brand name, but Pennsylvania was known as the big oil thing. Now this happened right before the Civil War. So during the Civil War, the big use of petroleum was kerosene for lamps. And here's a railroad lamp from the Civil War. And the Confederates and the Union both realized petroleum had potential. And this sign commemorates the Confederates destroying Union oil works in what's now West Virginia. Now during the Civil War, John D. Rockefeller, who's in Cleveland, did his own refinery on this spot near some public buildings in Cleveland. And it was 7 years later he started the Standard Oil Company, based in Cleveland, because that was not that far from Pennsylvania. So 1859, the first oil well. 1870, Standard Oil got started. And if this interests you, read this book by Daniel Yergin, The Prize. Just a superlative history of the oil industry.